Okay.
All right.
All right.
All right. I'm going to sign off.
Okay.
But I'll be listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you can see the slides, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. We are in business. Ta-da. Okay, you've already met us. Hi, everybody. We're so happy that you came tonight to hear us, or today for Sydney, tonight for us. In New York, it is after 5, so.
True.
Cheers.
Cheers, everybody. Cheers, Sydney. And, just so you guys know, Sydney and I normally sit right across from each other at work, and we talk most of the day about really silly things like what we're watching, TikTok, all sorts of weird things. So it's actually really nice for me to get to see Sydney and have a drink with her too. So,
I know, I miss this.
We're happy that you guys are here. And we know that a lot of people have been reading a lot over the quarantine. And we've heard from a lot of people that books have been, keeping them sane. And so we thought, maybe you're through your TBR pile. Maybe you're still getting through it, but we are going to add a lot more books to your TBR pile tonight. I know that even when we do these events at work with each other, we're always scribbling down books that we want to read. So we hope that you like our selection, and we're just going to get started because we have a lot. We'll try to talk fast. Sydney, why don't you explain the format key?
Sure. All right. So under each book cover that we've put on this presentation, there'll be different labels. So HC equals hardcover, a TR is trade paperback, LP is a large print format, ebook will mean electronic book, Kindle, DN is audio download, and CD is the compact disc. So that's just seeing what formats are available for each title that we will speak about.
All right. Hold on, I have to get good at doing the slides. Oh,
there we go.
Did I skip?
Already. Yes.
Is that good?
Yep. So some of you may already be familiar with our blogs and e-newsletters from Borrow, Read, Repeat. But if you're not, it's a great resource where you can find reading recommendations and downloadable materials. So on our blog, we recently posted a Pride blog with a list of different books that are perfect to celebrate and give voice to the LGBTQ+ community. We also had a blog that had a list of great recommendations for books for Father's Day. And we post a couple of times a week, so there's definitely something for everyone. And you can follow us on our socials. We have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, as you can see on the screen. And also we have an e-newsletter where you can also learn about the hottest new books before they hit the shelves. And if you want to sign up for that newsletter, you can just sign up at tinyurl.com/BRR sign up.
Yes, and also to note, we will send the slides out after. If you'd like to, if you sign up for our newsletter, I don't know if you get the slides, but we'll send the slides to the library and you guys can get the slides so you don't have to feel like you need to scribble everything down.
Right.
All right.
Thank you very much. That is a really great thing.
Oh yeah, we'll send them to you, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Also, I just wanted to highlight our audiobook resources, obviously ever since quarantine and further, but I feel like because access to physical copies weren't as available then, I feel like audiobooks have been a great way to integrate into this new phase of life that we're living in. I personally love audiobooks and I use the Volumes app that we have, and it has all of our books on audio, and it's a great multitasking resource. I use them while I do puzzles, cooking, baking, on a drive, gardening. There's always great opportunities to listen to audiobooks. So make sure you look into our Volumes app. And then there's also a podcast that we have with narrators and authors called This is the Author that is on anywhere you can listen to podcasts, but that's kind of more in-depth about audiobooks. And it's just a really great resource too if you're interested in getting to know more about the book.
I will say that I love audiobooks, but lately I love listening to them most when I'm doing absolutely nothing. Because then I feel like somebody's just reading to me, and it's like the most indulgent thing that I think I have in my life. So, all right. Oh, the reading challenge. That's you, Sid. right?
Yes, and we also have our own version of our reading challenge. So we started this back in January, but if you're looking for something else to do and another to-do list to check off, you should try our Read 20 and 20 challenge. We have, I think, 11 different challenges with 20 books on it, and they're all genre-based. But what's kind of fun about it is you can just tackle one challenge, whether it's debut fiction, female voices, diverse voices, the classics. We have like a page-to-screen challenge. And it's kind of fun just to see how many books you have read, or if you want to see if you want to read an entire genre, that's great, or just mix and match 20 books from our challenges, that's awesome too. But there's, for more information, you can see the tiny URL link at the bottom of the slide. And it's just been really fun to see, personally, like during quarantine, to see, like, I've been watching a lot of movies and TV shows based on books, so I think it's kind of like a fun 2-in-1 thing to do too. So.
And we also just want to quickly tell you about our First Look Book Club, if you'd like to sign up for this. Basically what this is every Monday to Friday, you'll get a little sampling of the first couple of chapters of a book. So by the end of the week, so every day you'll get a couple more lines or another chapter, or several hundred words. And then by the end of the week, you've dipped into about 1 or 2 chapters of the book. And then at the end of it, you can decide if you want to continue reading it. So it's a great way to figure out if you want to read something without having to buy it or without having to wait on the holds list at the library. So we encourage you to sign up for our First Look Book Club, and we also do some really fun giveaways on there as well. And we also wanted to let you know that we know there's a lot been going on in the world right now. What a crazy year 2020 has been. As a company, we have compiled a book list of some anti-racist reading suggestions, and you can find all these on our website. We just wanted to make you aware that these book lists do exist. There's books on there for audiobook listeners, for younger children, for middle-aged children. And these are the books a lot of people are reading right now. So if you wanted to see more of these titles, we have the URLs on the screen, and then also we'll be sending this out to you, but you can also look on the Penguin Random House website and pretty easily find these.
We also have all of these books at the library if you're interested. We have them on digital as well. So.
Oh, great. Yep, and so there's some of the ones on here that are, the obvious ones, but then we've got a more robust list for you as well. And then, like I said, we've got a list for the young adult audiences all the way down to the kids. Sometimes, we know that if you're a book person, you know that sometimes a conversation works better when you're talking about a topic through a book at the same time. Okay. So it makes it, yeah. All right, so now on to the books. Get your pens out and write down exactly what you're going to want to read. So we had a really hard time deciding what to put on here because there's a lot of good ones, but we will do our best.
Yeah, so let us begin with Home Before Dark. This is Riley Sager's 4th novel. I am a pretty big thriller fan, especially in the summer. I'm not sure what about summer and thrillers that just are like perfect for me, but this is a great list of books that you'll definitely want to pick up. So we'll begin with Home Before Dark. In the latest thriller from New York Times best-selling author Riley Sager, a woman returns to the house made famous by her father's best-selling horror memoir. Is the place really haunted by evil forces, as her father claimed, or are there more earthbound and dangerous secrets hidden within its walls? Alternating between Maggie's uneasy homecoming and chapters from her father's book, Home Before Dark is the story of a house with long buried secrets and a woman's quest to uncover them, even if the truth is far more terrifying than any haunting. And what's really exciting about this is that we just found out that this book has been optioned by Sony Pictures and to be turned into a movie, and they're going to be producing it by the same people who created Stranger Things, which I'm super excited about. So this will be a very fun watch as well. And next up, we have 7 Lies by Elizabeth Kay. And this title, I'm pretty sure, just came out last Tuesday, which is very exciting because this has been a big title for us at our company. So if you've gasped at The Woman in the Window, if you spent time getting to know 9 Perfect Strangers and The Girl Before, if you are mesmerized by The Silent Patient, you will adore 7 Lies. It has the perfect balance of upmarket writing combined with a killer commercial hook around the structure of the 7 lies told by Jane as her story unfolds. This is a seductive, hypnotic page-turner about the tangled, toxic friendships between women, the dark underbelly of obsession, and what we stand to lose in the name of love. And then the best-selling thriller author Harlan Coben quoted, "Keep the lights on, you'll be turning pages deep into the night with this one." So sold me at this point. And then we'll move on to Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is her second book, and she originally wrote Gods of Jade and Shadow. So this is a new, terrifying twist on a classic Gothic horror set in glamorous 1950s Mexico. Would be great for fans of classic novels like Jane Eyre and Rebecca, who are in for a suspenseful treat. So, after receiving a frantic letter from her newlywed cousin begging for someone to save her from a mysterious doom, Noemi Taboada heads to High Place, a distant house in the Mexican countryside, and she's not sure what she will find. Noemi is also an unlikely rescuer. She's a glamorous debutante, and her chic gowns and perfect red lipstick are more suited for cocktail parties than amateur sleuthing. But she's also tough and smart, with an indomitable will, and she is not afraid. Not of her cousin's new husband, who is both menacing and alluring, not of his father, the ancient patriarch who seems to be fascinated by Noemi, and not even of the house itself, which begins to invade Noemi's dreams with visions of blood and doom. And Noemi, mesmerized by the terrifying yet seductive world of High Place, may soon find it impossible to ever leave this enigmatic house behind.
The first book I'm going to talk about is called What's Left of Me Is Yours. The plot of this book is so fun. And also the sense of place is going to make you want to travel again. I know we all miss traveling. The New York Times says each chapter of this enrapturing novel is elegantly brief and charged with barely contained emotion. This is a gripping debut set in modern-day Tokyo and inspired by a true crime for readers of Everything I Never Told You and The Perfect Nanny. And What's Left of Me of Yours charts a woman's search for truth about her mother's life and her murder. It's set in Japan, and there's a covert industry in Japan, which I cannot say, but I'm going to do my best. And this covert industry has grown up around the Wakasara Sea. I can't say it, I'm sorry. And it literally means breaker upper. So a person hired by one spouse to seduce the other in order to gain the advantage in divorce proceedings, which I feel like for book clubs is such a fun topic right there. So when Sato hires Kitaro, one of these breaker upper agents, to have an affair with his wife, Rina, he assumes it will be an easy case. But Sato has never truly understood Rina or her desires, and Kitaro's job is to do exactly that. Until things go just a little bit too well, and Rina remains ignorant of the circumstances that brought them together, but she falls desperately in love with Kitaro. In a singular love set in motion, which ends up setting in motion a series of violent acts that will forever haunt her daughter's life. It's told from alternating points of view and across the breathtaking landscapes of Japan, and Stephanie Scott exquisitely renders the affair and its intricate repercussions. As Rina's daughter Sumiko fills in the gaps of her mother's story and her own memory, Scott probes the thorny psychological and moral grounds of the actions we take in the name of love, asking where we draw the line between passion and possession. So very meaty and a very juicy topic for book club discussion. Next up, right? I can't wait to read that one actually.
Yeah, and that cover is very cool too.
I know. The next one is the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, and I don't know if any of you have heard of this one, but Grady Hendrix always writes a really scary book. You meet him in person, he's the loveliest person ever. He makes you feel all warm and fuzzy, and then he scares the crap out of you. So that is his role in this world.
Very talented.
Very talented. So
All making you cry. We
yes.
were laughing and crying by the end of his presentation last time we saw him at a conference.
I know, he does. He makes you cry. And then when you read the book and you get scared, you get a little bit mad at him because you feel like he tricked you.
Yeah.
He does that in this book. He really does. Anyway, I'll describe it first and then I'll tell you how. But they're pitching this as Steel Magnolias meets Dracula, which really does say it all. It's set in the 90s. It's a horror novel about a woman's book club that must do battle with its own mysterious newcomer in their small town. So Patricia Campbell is at the center of the story. And she is, you reading the story and you feel like you get her. She's a mom, she's a wife, she's got all this stuff to do. Her only outlet is her book club. And her book club has decided to only read true crime books. So they're reading like In Cold Blood, and they're all together and they're fascinated by the minds of these criminals. So just as the book club starts really delving into these really scary books, one of the neighbors is viciously attacked, and the nephew of this neighbor, his name is James Harris, comes into their life, and James comes to to protect his aunt and all that stuff, but really he's maybe got some dark secrets of his own. So the more Patricia feels like she can trust him, the more trouble that starts to happen in the neighborhood. Patricia starts realizing that James is her friend, and she starts trusting him more than anybody else, but then realizes that maybe he's more of a Bundy than a Brad Pitt. So little by little, James will insinuate himself into the community, and it's up to this book club of women to join together and put their friendship to the test to see what they're made of. And I'm telling you, there is some really, really strong tests of friendship in this book, and it's something. I really, really loved this one. I'm not gonna say anything else, or I'll give away the end. So those are dark and stormy reads for you. Gosh, I'm not good at this. Oh, here we go. Here's a couple of lighter things for you. Yes. We'll go from the dark gore of, and I will tell you that I honestly was reading that book, like holding on to my skin, because I was like terrified.
I know, that's next on my list. I've been meaning to read that one for a while, so.
Yeah, but again, you're crying and you're like thinking, oh my gosh, I hope I have friends that would, maybe get covered in blood for me, and I'm not sure if I do.
We'll see.
So I'm super excited to talk about the next two books with you. I love talking about Kevin Kwan books, and Sex and Vanity is Entertainment Weekly. Now, Kevin Kwan from Crazy Rich Asian series, and Entertainment Weekly called this his most decadent book. So there's a lot in here. If this is more decadent, yes. So it's from the iconic author of Crazy Rich Asians, and he returns with a glittering tale of a young woman who finds herself torn between two men. The waspy fiancé of her family's dreams, and George Zhao, the man she is desperately trying to avoid falling in love with. On her very first morning on the jewel-like island of Capri, Lucy Churchill sets eyes on George Zhao, and she instantly can't stand him. Of course, you know what that means. She can't stand it when he gallantly offers to trade hotel rooms with her so she can have a better view of the sea. She can't stand that he knows more about the local architecture than she does, and she really can't stand when he kisses her in the darkness of the ancient ruins of a Roman villa, and they are caught by her snobbish, disapproving cousin Charlotte. So Charlotte reminds her that she is the daughter of an American-born Chinese mother and a blue-blooded New York father, and Lucy has always sublimated the Asian side of herself in favor of the white side, and she adamantly denies having feelings for George. But of course, several years later, George unexpectedly appears in East Hampton, where Lucy is weekending with her new fiance, and Lucy again finds herself very drawn to George. So it's a love triangle, it's a modern love story, a daring homage to A Room with a View, and it's a brilliantly funny comedy of manners set between two cultures that I feel Kevin Kwan does best. And then, Sydney, I think you're next, right?
I can do one to watch. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I could do Beach Read too. I forgot.
That's okay. I'll do it.
Okay. Go ahead.
So one to watch is probably I have not read it yet, but I'm going to read it actually next. I keep saying that, but I have a very large TBR list as well. But if you are a huge Bachelor franchise fan, I very much am. This book is definitely for you. It's kind of like Bachelor with a twist. So meet Bea Schumacher, a devastatingly stylish plus-size fashion blogger who has amazing friends, a devoted family, legions of Insta followers, and a massively broken heart. Like the rest of America, Bea indulges in her weekly obsession, the hit reality show Main Squeeze, the fantasy dates, the kiss-off rejections, the surprising amount of guys named Chad. But Bea is sick and tired of the lack of body diversity on the show, since when is being a size 0 a prerequisite for getting engaged on television? Just when Bea has sworn off dating altogether, she gets an intriguing call. Main Squeeze wants her to be its next star. Surrounded by men vying for her affections, Bea agrees on one condition. Under no circumstances will she actually fall in love. But when the cameras start rolling, B realizes things are more complicated than she anticipated. She's in a whirlwind of sumptuous couture, internet culture wars, sexy suitors, and an opportunity, or two, or five, to find messy, real-life love in the midst of a made-for-TV fairy tale. In this joyful, razor-sharp debut, B has to decide whether it might just be worth trusting these men and herself for a chance to live happily ever after. Isn't that just great?
You do need to read this, because I don't think I've ever heard someone talk about The Bachelor more than you. So I think
I know.
this is definitely your thing. So you know how everybody asks you what you're reading on the beach. Beach Read doesn't even bother to pull any punches. It's just named Beach Read for a reason. It is the perfect book for the beach. It's original. It's about a romance writer who no longer believes in love, and a literary writer that is stuck in a rut. And they engage in a summer-long challenge that just may upend everything they believe about happily ever afters. So Augustus Everett is an acclaimed author of literary fiction, and January Andrews writes best-selling romance. When she pens a happily ever after, he kills off his entire cast. They are polar opposites. January has recently, though, found out that the idyllic family that she comes from is not actually what she thought. At her father's funeral, she finds out that her father had a mistress and owned a beach house with her. So the father leaves her the beach house, and also the responsibility of cleaning it out and kind of coming to terms with all of the secrets that he was keeping from her while she's packing up the house. The next door neighbor just so happens to be her nemesis from college, who they did have one very passionate hookup in college, and they haven't seen each other in I think it's about 15 years later, maybe 10. So anyway, she's a romance writer. He's one of those dark, depressing writers, and they both challenge each other to write a book that's the opposite of what they normally read. So while so they decide that he's going to teach her how to write something dark and depressing, and she's going to teach him how to write a romantic comedy. So she takes him to like the carnival and to play mini golf, and he takes her to where like a murder had taken place in a cult community. So the whole time that they're trying to become more like the other one in their writing, they actually are learning a lot about themselves. This is another one that I absolutely love. So if I don't stop talking, I'm going to give away the ending. But it's really a great book. And also, like, I know a lot of times people say, oh, it's a beach read. It's like, light and fluffy. And in a way it is, but there's a lot to this story. And I will tell you that my actual book club read this last week, and we haven't had a conversation this good about a book in a really long time. So I highly recommend Beach Read. It was really a great story. And of course, it makes you want to stay on the beach or go to a beach house for the whole summer. Girls of Summer. Sorry, let me just go to it. So Girls of Summer is, is about one life-changing summer on Nantucket. And Nancy Thayer's writing. She writes really great family relationships and drama, and gets to the heart of the matter in all of her stories, and she does the same thing here. It's a novel about a single mother and her two grown children. Lisa Hawley is perfectly satisfied living on her own after having fully recovered from a brutal divorce nearly 2 decades earlier. So she's taken a little bit of time to regroup. She's successfully raised both of her kids, Juliet and Theo. They are now off on their own and doing well. She owns a boutique in Nantucket. She's built a good life for herself. But her house that she desperately loves is in need of repair. And Lisa calls on Mac Whitney, a friendly and very handsome local contractor, and also a fellow single parent, to do the work. So the two, of course, end up becoming very drawn to each other, even though Mac is 10 years her junior. So good for her. But Juliet and Theo, the kids, of course, they're sensing that their mother's happy, and why is she with this man that's so much younger? And they are starting to not trust it. So they decide it's up to them to come home, keep their eye on their mother, and work through some of their own things at the same time. And then Juliet and Theo both end up in love triangles or love situations of their own, where they both end up falling in love with local people, and lots of family drama ensues. Of course, Theo, the son, ends up falling in love with Mac, the boyfriend's daughter. So it's all very connected. But as the season unfolds and a storm threatens to shatter the peace of the Golden Island, it forces Lisa, Juliet, and Theo to decide whether their summer romances are destined for something more profound. And Thayer dazzles again in this delightful tale of family, a reminder that sometimes finding our way back home can bring us unexpected gifts.
Cute. Very cute.
Yeah, I like that one.
All right, and our last beach bag book we will chat about is Friends and Strangers by Courtney J. Sullivan. If you might know her from her two other best-selling titles, Maine and Saints for All Occasions. I actually heard her, she was interviewing Anna Napolitano for her Dear Edward book release back in the city. I think it was January or February, whenever that came out, and I just fell in love with her. She was so cool, and I was so excited to read her book, so I'm very glad I did, and here's a little bit about it. Elizabeth, an accomplished journalist and new mother, is struggling to adjust to life in a small town after nearly 20 years in New York City. Alone in the house with her infant son all day and awake with him much of the night, she feels uneasy and adrift. She neglects her work, losing untold hours to her Brooklyn Moms Facebook group, her influencer sister's Instagram feed, and text messages with the best friend she never sees anymore. Enter Sam, a senior at the local women's college, whom Elizabeth hires to babysit. Sam is struggling to decide between the path she always planned on and a romantic entanglement that threatens her ambition. She's worried about a student loan debt and what the future holds. In short order, they grow close. But when Sam finds an unlikely kindred spirit in Elizabeth's father-in-law, the true differences between the women's lives become starkly revealed, and a betrayal has devastating consequences. A masterful exploration of motherhood, power dynamics, and privilege in its many forms, Friends and Strangers reveals how a single year can shape the course of a life.
We had to fight over who was going to talk about this one.
I know. And the cover is so pretty too. I've been loving these covers recently. They're so colorful and just different, and I'm very into it.
I always love when there's a new Courtney Sullivan book. She's one of my favorites. All right. Oh, talking about favorites. Okay, so these are books that we're saying are perfect for book clubs, even though honestly, all of the books that we've talked about so far are probably really good for book clubs. But of course, we can't talk about book clubs without talking about Fiona Davis, the best-selling author of The Address. She wrote The Masterpiece. I'm a huge fan of Fiona Davis. I think she tells a really great story. And this one does not disappoint. This is The Lions of Fifth Avenue. It's one of those two generations looking at the same problem from, I think we're, 80 years apart from each other. So in 1913, on the surface, Laura Lyons couldn't ask for more out of life. Her husband is the superintendent of the New York Public Library, allowing their family to live in an apartment within the Grand Building, and they are blessed with 2 children. But headstrong, passionate Laura wants more, and when she takes a leap of faith and applies to the Columbia Journalism School, her world is cracked open. Her studies take her all over the city, and she's drawn to the Greenwich Village, New Bohemia, where she discovers the Heterodoxy Club, a radical all-female group in which women are encouraged to loudly share their opinions of suffrage, birth control, and women's rights. And soon Laura finds herself questioning her traditional role as a wife and mother. But then valuable books are stolen back at the library, threatening the home and the institution that she loves, and she's forced to confront her shifting priorities head on, and she just might lose everything in the process. And then 80 years later, enter Sadie Donovan in 1993, and she struggles with the legacy of her grandmother, the famous essayist Laura Lyons, and her role as an essayist and a mother in that time, especially after she's wrangled into her dream job as a curator at the New York Public Library. But the job quickly becomes a nightmare when, again, rare manuscripts, notes, and books for the exhibit that Sadie is running begin disappearing from the library's famous Berg collection. Determined to save both the exhibit and her career, the typically risk-averse Sadie teams up with a private security expert to uncover the culprit. However, things unexpectedly become personal when the investigation leads Sadie to some unwelcome truths about her own family's heritage. Truth that shed new light on the biggest tragedy in the library's history. So it's based on true events, It's fascinating story, and you'll find out while you're reading it, even though it's about these two women, you're going to find out really, really interesting things about the whole background about the New York Public Library and their collections and stuff like that. Yeah. Oh, you go now. Sorry.
Next, we have Rodham from the New York Times bestselling author of American Wife Ineligible. This is a novel that imagines a deeply compelling what might have been. He proposed, she said no, and it changed her life forever. What if Hillary Rodham hadn't married Bill Clinton? Brilliantly weaving a riveting fictional tale into actual historical events, Curtis Sittenfeld delivers an uncanny, astute, and witty story for our times. And exploring the loneliness, moral ambivalence, and iron determination that characterize the quest for political power, as well as both the exhilaration and painful compromises demanded of female ambition in a world still run mostly by men, Rodham is a singular and unforgettable novel. So this has been a very talked about novel as well within the...
Yeah, very true. We are very privileged at Penguin Random House to also publish some books from other publishing companies, or to distribute, I should say. And Other Press is one of those smaller publishers that puts out these gems once in a while that you cannot stop talking about. And This Little Family is one of them. It's a debut, and it's for fans of My Dark Vanessa. So definitely not a light beach read, not a light book club read, but it's a striking debut novel that inhabits the mind of a young married woman driven to extremes by disgust and the dread of the aftermath of a rape. Marie and Laurent, a young affluent couple have just settled into their large Paris apartment and decide to start trying to have a baby. This picture-perfect existence is shattered when Marie is assaulted by her new boss. Deeply shaken by the attack, she discovers she is pregnant and is convinced her rapist is actually the father. Marie closes herself off in a destructive silence, ultimately leading her to commit a really serious act, something that she cannot repair. It's a first novel of extraordinary power and depth, and it exposes the disturbing truths about how society sees women and how women see themselves in return.
Also a good one. All right. The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. I cannot say this enough. I love Britt so much. We were at a library conference back in February, and I requested to work with her when she came to our booth to do like a little signing, because I was obsessed with her first book, The Mothers, and I am like halfway through reading this book now, and I highly, highly, highly recommend. So, The Vanishing Half. The Vigneault's twin sisters will always be identical. But after growing up together in a small Southern Black community and running away at age 16, it is not just the shape of their daily lives that is different as adults, it is everything. Their families, their communities, their racial identities. Many years later, one sister lives with her Black daughter in the same Southern town she once tried to escape. The other secretly passes for white, and her white husband knows nothing of her past. Still, even separated by so many miles and just as many lies, the fates of the twins remain intertwined. What will happen to the next generation when their own daughter storylines intersect? Weaving together multiple strands and generations of this family, from the Deep South to California, from the 1950s to the 1990s, Britt Bennett produces a story that is once a riveting, emotional family story and a brilliant exploration of the American history of passing. Looking well beyond issues of race, The Vanishing Half considers the lasting influence of the past as it shapes a person's decisions, desires, and expectations, and explores some of the multiple reasons and realms in which people sometimes feel pulled to live as something other than their origins. And this book also just hit #1 on the New York Times bestseller list last week, so we were very excited about that, and it was chosen for the Good Morning America Book Club, which I just found out as well. So Britt is doing great, and you all should read it as well.
I will say that Sydney and I are known as the department stalkers. So when we like an author, we are always told to be on our best behavior, that we don't overdo it with our enthusiasm.
Like one author per conference that we're allowed to be.
So yeah, and we're not allowed to like the same person at the same time, because then I would feel sorry for that author. Next is A Burning, and this is another book. I think this one is also a debut. Yes, it is. And also it was a Read with Jenna book club pick. So it's really always really fun when a debut novel gets picked by such a big celebrity to it and endorses it. This is for readers of Tommy Orange, and Ya Jesse and Jhumpa Lahiri, and it's an electrifying debut about 3 unforgettable characters who seek to rise to the middle class, to political power, to fame in the movies, and find their lives entangled in the wake of a catastrophe in contemporary India. So again, another book that takes you somewhere that is not in your quarantined home. Javan is a Muslim girl from the slums determined to move up in life. She's accused of executing a terrorist attack on a train because of a careless moment on Facebook. P.T. Sir is an opportunistic gym teacher who hitches his aspirations to a right-wing political party and who finds that his own ascent becomes linked to Javan's fall. Lovely is an irresistible outcast whose exuberant voice and dreams of glory fill the novel with warmth and hope and humor, and has the alibi that can set Javan free, but it will cost her everything she holds dear. This symphonic, propulsive, and riveting from its opening lines, A Burning has the force of an epic while being so masterfully compressed it can actually be read in one sitting. Majumdar writes with dazzling assurance at breakneck pace on complex themes that read here as the components of a thriller: class, fate, corruption, justice, and what it feels like to face profound obstacles and yet nurture big dreams in a country spinning toward extremism. We're really, really excited about A Burning. Hope you will check it out. Okay. Oh.
All right. And if you are engaged with those books and want to learn about more books that you would like to use for a book club, our department specifically makes book club brochures, which is the first picture you'll see. We make 2 a year. So we're up to volume 20 now, which is crazy. So we have, each volume has probably like 10 to 12 different suggestions with a full list of discussion questions and a little blurb about what the book's about. We also have diverse book club brochures as well, as you see in the middle. So we can just interact with all different types of books and all different types of audiences with really engaging questions that will spark really great discussions. And then we also just have book specific brochures that are usually, we work with our corporate departments with, that like specific authors will want to have a specific book club issue, I guess, so we'll work with them as well. But all of these resources can be found on our issue page, and the link is issue.com/PRH library. But once again, we will have these slides sent to you later, so don't feel like the need to write any of this down now.
Yeah, and if you're hosting a book club and it's your turn to pick, these are great resources, and so is our issue page, because you can go through and see which books already have the discussion questions, and some of them have like recipes to go along with the books, and they're really fun. So especially if you're hosting, sometimes that's a little stressful. These are really great resources for you. All right. So we're just going to tell you about some nonfiction essentials now. We know that, you know, when you get so caught up in book club talk, you do sometimes forget that people really do like to read nonfiction as well. And also that sometimes nonfiction gives you more to talk about, and you can't believe it's actually not made up half the time. So, you know, these are some great choices for you for your nonfiction audiences and fans. And, you know, sometimes I know I have a friend who has a book. They have a very strict book club, and 3 times a year they read nonfiction, which I think is very funny. They have certain months that are set aside for nonfiction. They are very dedicated. So I'll just quickly tell you about 5 Days, The Fiery Reckoning of an American City by Wes Moore, who you might know from the other Wes Moore. And this is a kaleidoscope account of 5 days in the life of a city on the edge, told through the 8 characters on the front lines of the uprising that overtook Baltimore and riveted the world. When Freddie Gray was arrested for possessing an illegal knife in April of 2015, he was, by eyewitness accounts, that video evidence later confirmed, roughly treated by the police and loaded him into a vehicle. By the end of the trip, I know that most of you will remember that he did not recover. So there were 5 days of a huge uprising in Baltimore. And this is Wes Moore's account of what happened in that city from the points of view of 5 different people. One is Erica Green, who she's a journalist who tells the story through her own observations. And one is they have the point of view of a conflicted Black captain from the Baltimore Police Department. Jenny, a young white public defender who's drawn into the violent center of the uprising herself. Tawanda, a young Black woman who spent a lonely year protesting the killing of her own brother by police, and John Angelos, who is from one of the city's most powerful families and the executive vice president of the Baltimore Orioles, who had to make choices of conscience that he'd never had to before. So this is from the shifting points of view, contribute to a really full-rounded account of what actually happened in that city, and how these problems ended up planting these small seeds of hope in the aftermath. So obviously so timely for what's going on right now. And Westmore writes really well and from the heart. And this is a really greatly or strongly researched book from him.
Definitely. And I do have to say, at the last conference that Kelly and I attended, he was the keynote speaker. So it was actually the first time that he was talking about this book back in February. And he is just a phenomenal public speaker. And I'm pretty sure that you can find, if you just look up Westmore 5 days, I'm sure there's more publicity now, but at the, was it PLA or the ALA Midwinter Conference, he has his keynote opening session speech, and I was in tears by the end of it. So it's definitely worth watching if you still want to get a little bit more information before you dive into the book, but overall, just great read, I think.
Yeah, he's definitely a captivating speaker.
All right, and next we're going to talk about Caste by Isabel Wilkerson. She's a Pulitzer Prize winning best-selling author of The Warmth of Other Suns, where she examines the unspoken caste system that has shaped America and shows how our lives today are still defined by a hierarchy of human divisions. Beyond race, class, or other factors, there's a powerful caste system that influences people's lives and behavior and the nation's fate. Linking the caste systems of America, India, and Nazi Germany, Wilkerson explores 8 pillars that underlie caste systems across civilizations, including divine will, bloodlines, stigma, and more. Using riveting stories about people, including Martin Luther King Jr., baseball's Satchel Paige, a single father and his toddler son, Wilkerson herself, and many others, she shows the ways that the insidious undertow of caste is experienced every day.
The next story, like I said before, sometimes nonfiction reads crazier than fiction. And the new choice from Oprah is called Hidden Valley Road. I guess it's her choice from last month. We talked about this the other day, how her timeline is a little weird, but not the book she just picked, but the one she picked before that is Hidden Valley Road, Inside the Mind of an American Family by Robert Kolker. This is a crazy story. I don't know if any of you have heard of it, but this is about the Galvin family who thought they were living the American dream. After World War II, Don's work with the Air Force brought them to Colorado, where their 12, I said that right, children perfectly spanned the baby boom. The oldest was born in 1945 and the youngest was born in 1965. So in those 20 years, they had 12 children. In those years, they were an established family in the area. The Galvins were taught to work hard. They played their part in the town. They put out there an appearance of domestic harmony, but behind the scenes was a different story. Psychological breakdown, sudden shocking violence, and hidden abuse. By the mid-1970s, 6 of the 10 Galvin boys, one after another, were diagnosed as schizophrenic. How could this all happen to one family? What took place inside the house on Hidden Valley Road was so extraordinary that the Galvins became one of the first families to be studied by the National Institute on Mental Health. Their story offers a shadow history of the science of schizophrenia from the era of institutionalization, lobotomy, and schizophrenic mother, to search for the genetic markers of the disease, always amid profound disagreements about the nature of the illness itself. And unbeknownst to the Galvins, samples of their DNA informed decades of genetic research that continues today, offering paths to treatment, prediction, and even eradication of the disease for future generations. With clarity and compassion, best-selling author and award winner Robert Kolker uncovers one family's unforgettable legacy of suffering, love, and hope. And I will say that this book could have been written as this like scandalous tell-all, but the way the author approaches it, honestly, his compassion is like the first thing that you see. And he does an incredible job writing about this family and the overwhelming, this was so much bigger than them. And at the time, back in the 60s, the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the mother's role was to put out this picture of everything being perfectly fine at home. You didn't talk about these things back then. And so this family went through a lot without being able to talk about it with each other. So it's really amazing.
Just to interrupt, we actually had Robert Kolker here
Oh, wow.
ago, and he actually we brought him on a psychiatrist also, and so they talked back and forth about the book, and it was insightful. And you're right, Kelly, he is the most Robert Kolker was the right person to write this story, to interview this family, what they went through, and how he was able to get them to talk, and he writes so sensitively and with great knowledge about just what he learned from the scientists and about the schizophrenia. And one thing that was interesting is that back when the very first son was diagnosed, it was pretty much common thought that the mother was at fault. And so, and that here they had 12 children. And so they really were put under a lot of scrutiny, the parents were. And in the end, what has been found out through the science is that it's really, there's really not a strong correlation that it's just that. There's genetic components, all these sorts of things. It's just a fascinating read, and really well written. And Robert Kolker, we actually have a YouTube video of that.
Oh, wow.
Of that interview between Dr. Grote and him. And it's really, it's a great, I agree with you. I was just so blown away, and I feel so much for that family.
I know.
Anyway, just want to let you know.
Yeah, I'm going to watch that video. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. Alrighty, and we just have a couple more left. Next, I'll be talking about The Women with Silver Wings by Catherine Sharp Landeck. So in The Women with Silver Wings, historian Catherine Sharp Landeck introduces us to the methodical Nancy Love and demanding visionary Jacqueline Cochran, the trailblazing pilots who first envisioned sending American women into the air, and whose rivalry would define the women Air Force service pilots, also known as the WASPs. For these women, it was a chance to serve their country and to prove that women aviators were just as skilled and able as men. Landeck is a pilot herself and has been an integral part of the WASP community for more than 25 years. It was meeting WASP Caro Bailey as a young woman that inspired Kate to become a historian in the first place. She was shocked that as a history major, she had never heard of the WASP and devoted her career to making their story better known. And we found out that film rights were sold to Fox at an auction with Thomas Kail, who directed Hamilton. So that's very exciting. And lastly, we have More Than Enough by Elaine Welteroth. So in this part manifesto, part memoir, the revolutionary editor who infused social consciousness into the pages of Teen Vogue explores what it means to come into your own on your own terms. Throughout her life, Elaine Welteroth has climbed the ranks of media and fashion, shattering ceilings along the way. In this riveting and timely memoir, the groundbreaking journalist unpacks lessons on race, identity, and success through her own journey, from navigating her way as the unstoppable child of an unlikely interracial marriage in a small-town California to finding herself on the front lines of a modern movement for the next generation of changemakers. Welteroth moves beyond the headlines and highlight reels to share the profound lessons and struggles of being a barrier breaker across so many intersections. As a young boss and the only Black woman in the room, she's had enough of the world telling her, and all women, they're not enough. As she learns to rely on herself by looking both inward and upward, we're ultimately reminded that we are more than enough.
And I believe
that should be.
That is it for us. We do want to remind you that we do these kinds of talks about once a month. The next one is not until August 6th, though. But if you would like some, by then you might be done with these, and you might want some more suggestions from us. And you can sign up for that event too if you'd like. And please let us know. Like we said, please let us know if you have any questions. And I think I did something. Oh, sorry. You know what? I'm going to stop sharing anyway, and I'm going to give the controls back to you, and then we can see if there's any questions or anything before we hang up. Hold on. Okay, hold on. Takes me a minute. We're all becoming Zoom experts. Okay.
Sometimes, those buttons, you get them all mixed up.
Yeah. There you go.
Great. Oh, thank you, you guys. This was a wonderful, wonderful showing of really great reads. I wrote down everything with stars next to them so I can start to highlight to my book groups all these great stories for them. We have a newsletter that goes out, so I thank you very much for all of this. Does anyone have any questions? You can put it right into the Zoom chat if you'd like to. But other than that, I think that, you know, everything was wonderful. Do you guys have any, like, how are you guys dealing with, it's ALA right now, the American Library Association conference. We're here. Are you guys doing more Zoom kinds of things for the ALA? I mean, everything is on Zoom.
Yeah, we've done so many virtual events. It's going to be weird to see when I see Sydney again in person. It's going to be weird. We've been looking at each other's faces so much on these calls. But yeah, we've been doing really fun author videos where the authors will send us, you know, we've been interviewing them on video. We've been doing book talks, all sorts of things. And I have to say, the reading community is such a great community because they really do stay plugged in. The librarians have been so communicative through this whole thing, and you know, we know what they're going through, they know what we're going through, and so we really have had a really great back and forth of being able to get the right resources to the librarians and to the readers. So it's been, you know, it's been challenging, but I have to say, if it wasn't for, like, sometimes, like, I think the first one we did with library, we do a live program once a week to librarians, and I think the first one we did, we were like all like even a little bit choked up because we felt like at least we can still talk about books, you know. So it's been really nice to talk about. Talking about books is always healing, I think. So
yes, and we're finding that to be true with when we had to be virtual and do our book talks or do any kind of any social media things. People were so appreciative to get information from us because you know, having to shut down and everyone be kind of quiet to stay within their homes, and it's where reading and any kind of the social network or even the virtual programs that we can give to them, they just feel so appreciative of that. And now that we are beginning to open our doors just a little bit and we have curbside pickup, oh my goodness, I think I just saw, I think like 300, 400 books a day are going out of the library.
oh, that's great.
Circulating so it's just yeah, reading is really a solve for everyone.
Yeah.
Know, making them feel good.
I have a friend who I feel like he might have a codependent relationship with his librarian because I guess he has I guess he could still contact her through all this, and she was actually going to the library once a week to do some administrative stuff. It's a small branch, but she would take the books out that he wanted and leave them on her back porch, and he would go grab them, and then so it's very funny.
That's very sweet. Yes. And you know, a lot of the people would come and drive and be right next to the library to get the Wi-Fi. You know,
oh my God.
Yes,
so we had a community that would join, that would just be there, and yeah, it was good to see everybody that way.
Yeah, oh, that's funny. That's
yeah,
funny.
yeah. Let me see. I don't. Some person just asked for the tiny URL for the ebooks trial read, but when you send me the slides, everyone, I will then anybody who is registered for this program, I will be sending those slides out to everyone, so you will get the information. Not to worry about that at all. So
we hope you've all been reading good books.
What's that?
We hope you've all been reading good books during the last couple of months.
We have.
We have a bunch of really exciting ones coming out in the fall, so hurry up and catch up.
Oh, the fall ones. Yes, I've been watching some of the ALA. There's some very good ones coming. Yes, I am looking forward to those, and I'll probably be starting to chat with on the newsletter to all the patrons.
Great.
Great.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Sydney. And Sydney,
you.
welcome back to New Canaan, even though you're way over in San Francisco.
I'll be back soon.
I thank you all very much. And thank you everyone for coming to the summer book buzz with Penguin Random House. As I said, I will be sending out the slideshow to everyone. So you will have that in your email box, by next week, definitely. Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks again.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.